It is said that laughter is good for your health, but what is behind it? We think that laughing is a consequence of something funny, but it is not, because irony, sarcasm, and comedy are purely subjective. Laughter, most of the times, is triggered by social situations. We are 30 times more likely to laugh in company than alone, because laughter has a contagious effect. Even according to a French philosopher, Henri Bergson, who wrote a small work called Laughter, an essay on the meaning of comedy, Bergson explains that laughter is a social phenomenon because it fulfills a social function. He who laughs is the bearer of a community need. The consciousness that presides over the consciousness of the comedian is imagination, and this, according to Bergson, is a dream released by society as a whole. Laughter, being a form of light-heartedness and freedom, is associated by many psychologists with childhood. It also makes us reflect on how life is mechanical and the human being tries to stimulate laughter and imagination to combat the anxiety behind this thought. This is exactly what we do every day if we stop to think about it. We turn on the television, we go to the theater, read a book to escape from the monotony and mechanization of life. We try to have fun with our friends, we laugh, we joke. In particular, however, when we are relaxing in front of the screen, perhaps watching a comic audiovisual product, the person sitting next to us may be laughing out loud, but we are not. So we ask ourselves, what is that makes people laugh? The answer is, whatever we subjectively find funny, nothing more, nothing less. However, it sometimes happens that foreign audiovisual comedy products are not successful in our country, mainly due to the lack of a correct translation. Let me show you an example based on a series I analyzed called That 70s Show. This particular series was very successful in America, so much so that it produced 8 seasons. But it was a big failure in Italy. If we want to find out the reasons for this, we only have to watch an episode of the series dubbed in Italian. In one scene in particular, Jackie Burkhardt asks her boyfriend, Michael Kelso, who the new foreign boy is who has joined the group. Her boyfriend answers by saying that he's here for a cultural exchange. She answers with the word sent in Italian. Here, the original translation doesn't work because it loses the play on words of exchange. In fact, the joke is centered on the word exchange. The translator decided to change it, losing the sense of the play completely. Staying on the word exchange in this way would have made more sense. Speaking of comedy, one thing that has always amazed me is I'm very curious about the cultural differences of speakers of the same language, is the huge difference between American and British comedy. Although in American and Britain they speak the same language, comedy is seen differently. In an interview, Stephen Fry, a British comedian, gives an example to explain us this difference. He says, "You know that scene in Animal House where there's a fellow playing folk music on guitar and John Belushi picks up the guitar and destroys it and the cinema loves it? Well, the British comedian would want to play the folk singer. We want to play the failure." This is a classic example of American humor. It is big, physical, vulgar, and out of mind. According to Fry, British comedy is more tragic. The comedian always loses. Comedy is something that comes from the culture of a people, hence the general context that people experience every day. Therefore, humor is something which is not always transferable in another country. Americans do not understand irony, or rather, Americans understand irony but do not understand its recurrent use. When it is used in American speech, it is often emphasized to make it clear that they were only joking. Perhaps this stems from a fear of offending people. The American sense of humor tends to be slapstick, without a necessary study behind it, spontaneous and irreverent, while the English sense of humor tends to be very subtle, with hints of irony and often dark. A hidden meaning is usually present. This may be due to the fact that the British tend to be more reserved than Americans. In the Spanish section, I have decided to consider the Paquita Salas series as an object of study. Paquita Salas is a Spanish comedy series set in the world of show business, in which numerous actors and actresses play themselves, which makes the context in which it takes place more realistic and credible. The series features a star agent who refuses to accept the progress of new technologies. In fact, Paquita Salas, played by Bryce Jefe, is an obsolete agent who has remained in the 90s. The translation of this series is well done, but there are some small imperfections. In this scene, for example, I think the translation is incorrect. Paquita asks the girls if they want to drink. She uses the word chupito, which literally means shot. That means a pure alcoholic drink in a very small glass. This is not only wrong from a translation point of view, but also wrong from a visual point of view, because in the scene in question we can clearly see Paquita pouring out the alcoholic drink into the small glass. In both Spain and Italy, shots are served in small glasses, whereas the word drink is normally considered to be a drink served in larger glass. In this series, we can see how Spanish comedy works, or at least some small nuances. Paquita is an exuberant character who does not mince her words. This contrasts with the quiet and shy character of Magui, her secretary. Together, however, we can see the right mix of comedy that creates a relationship between exuberance and patience. All this represents Spanish comedy most of the time, neither too much nor too little. It does not reflect the slapstick of American comedy. It does not call itself dark and realistic like English comedy, but it comes very close to the Italian comedy, exuberant but restrained. So we can conclude by saying that what makes us laugh depends on us, our context, and our experience.